Middle East is on the cusp of a dangerous regional war as Iran-Israel rivalry has taken a sharp turn. The war in Gaza has shifted Iran and Israel's stance from playing in the shadows to an open confrontation. Tensions are rising as Iran fired 180 ballistic missiles at Israel on October 1st, 2024. On the other hand, Israel has launched hundreds of air and missile strikes in Lebanon over the past few weeks. These attacks have killed more than 1,000 people and wounded many. Now, the Middle East is in a volatile situation than it was a year ago. The conflict that initially started as Israel-Hamas is now heading on to a pan-Middle Eastern war. But the Israel-Hamas war is not between these two sides. It actually involves multiple countries and groups with their interests and stakes to influence and benefit from this war. The war in the Middle East has now involved 16 different countries leading towards the brink of a global security threat. Let's explore how the Iran-Israel war can threaten the peace of the whole region.
Israel is irreplaceable to America.
It all started a year ago on October 7th when Hamas launched a series of rockets on Israel. The air and ground assault killed 1,200 Israelis, but within hours, Israel struck back. Israel mounted an all-out war on Hamas in the Gaza Strip that took more than 40,000 Palestinian lives. Some estimates say it's more than 100,000. With this attack, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also ordered a total siege of this densely populated territory with around 2 million residents. The war had started. That too with a cost no one ever imagined. On one side are Israel and its long-term ally, the US, and on the other side, Iran's funded proxy groups Hezbollah, Hamas, and insurgents. Israel occupied most of the Gaza Strip while still in the fight with Yemeni Houthis, Lebanon's Hezbollah, and Hamas. All these interest groups and warring groups confronted Israel in solidarity with the innocent Palestinians and their territorial claim. The region should have headed towards a ceasefire, but what happened was an all-out war broke out. This led to a gathering of alliances in the region and on a global scale. The US defended Israel's claim by retorting back to the brutal airstrikes of Hamas. Some countries stood behind the Palestinians' cause on the diplomatic and political front. But this war in Gaza has brought two arch-rivals, Iran and Israel, to a closer fight than ever. The Palestinian issue has been the bone of contention between Tehran and Israel for quite some time. Moreover, Iran has long been vying to dominate as a regional power in the Middle East. The only challenge it faces is in the form of Israel sitting right under its nose. So a balance of power option becomes necessary in order for both powers to counter each other. That's what happened when Israel prepared a ground invasion. Iran realized this could extend way beyond the Gaza Strip. Last year, Israel bombed 2 airports in Syria to disrupt Iranian supply lines. Israel acted way ahead to check the Iranian military presence in the country. Hamas and Hezbollah are Iran's closest allies. Iran has provided them with advanced military equipment, weapons, and tactics to fight Israeli incursions. This put Israel and Iran in a direct war. Tehran holds a considerable influence in Lebanon and Syria, so further Israeli attacks on these countries will damage Iran's stand in the region and weaken its position. That's why Iran has strongly criticized Israel's constant attack on the regional borderlines to counter terrorist groups. On top of that, the ideological cause and the proxy groups are not the only source of tension between Iran and Israel. Both have consistently been involved in a series of attacks on each other's interests, both in and out of their respective domains. Their so-called shadow war intensified after a series of hostilities grew. A few bitter incidents added fuel to the fire in an already escalating situation. On July 31st, the political chief of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was killed in an explosion for which Iran blamed Israel. This rang alarm bells in the region, and Iran's top officials condemned this act. But in a recent development, the escalation took a new turn when Israel struck down Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. Nasrallah was a hero to many and a leader of a resistance movement. His assassination sent shockwaves among many and also concerned Iranian power figures in the region. Along with that, Israel vowed to eliminate Hamas, which runs Gaza Strip. To make this happen, the US has promised relentless support to Israel and is the only country to have received more Washington's aid in the world after World War II. In 2016, the US and Israel signed a third 10-year memorandum of understanding that ends in 2028. This will provide Israel with $38 billion in military aid, $33 billion to buy military equipment, and $5 billion for missile defense systems. This seems to be a game-changing project for Israel and a win-win situation. Not only that, the US has also provided Israel with Iron Dome, a short-range rocket defense system. This Iron Dome has intercepted thousands of missiles fired by Hamas and the latest series of fires from Iran. So it seems the threat of a regional war is no longer imminent. It is here. The conflict that started in Gaza has now expanded across the Middle East. Not only that, it has far-reaching global implications that few may understand yet. When Iran fired more than 180 missiles at Israel, Netanyahu announced that they would retaliate even with a larger force. He said at his Security Cabinet meeting, "Whoever attacks us, we attack them." The US President Joe Biden also reiterated his stance to defend Israel, saying Iran would suffer severe consequences after this attack. Adding to that, Biden also talked about carrying out attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. But the question is, will this lead to a full-scale war across regional and global scales? If so, then how do superpowers like the US, China, and Russia stand out in this one? The answer is simple. Every superpower will put their stakes in this war to eventually win and dominate the world stage, either in diplomacy or in the military. So if Israel retaliates much harder, then a nuclear war seems inevitable. In that case, the US will be on one side with Israel and its Western alliance. Taking this into consideration, Saudi Arabia and UAE will also play their game for their vested political gain. While on the other hand, Iran will be left behind by its militant proxies, China and Russia. Playing this game, the US has provided diplomatic cover to Israel, and Russia has pledged to send fighter jets and air defense technology to Iran. Interestingly, Russia is already purchasing Iranian weapons for its war in Ukraine, so Iran is getting heavy cash in that case, which solidifies its strength. Also, Iran is adopting its strategy by engaging Israel through multiple war fronts: Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq, and Houthis in Yemen. While doing this, Iran has staged a direct attack by firing out missiles. Now Netanyahu presumes to take a policy of deterrence. This policy will change the dynamics of the Middle East, as it will lock out the escalation of Iran and Israel. A war will start that will spread to other countries. Many innocent people will die, economies will be affected, and businesses will be screeched to a halt. To make things worse, the region will fall into a wider conflagration. According to reports, Iran's nuclear missile system, communication centers, oil facilities, and power plants will be on the hit list of Israel. So these highly sensitive targets will prompt Iran to attack the oil production sites of the US allies like UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar in the region. Likewise, if Israel strikes back on Iranian oil facilities and its Quds Force headquarters, then Iran will suffer a major blow. Then Tehran will seek out the support of Russia and China to deter Israel's incursion on its borders. So the Iran-Israel fallout can impact global politics and question the already unstable situation in the Middle East. Recalling the normalization deals with Israel by many Arab states, it is now clear that not a single Gulf state wants to do this again. After the October 7th invasion of Hamas and Israel's all-out war on Palestinians, the Gulf states are not in a hurry to establish diplomatic ties with Israel. But how this war will be spread out to other states? Firstly, the Iran-Israel escalation could expand to some Gulf countries whose airspace lies between both warring sides. As these states hold US military bases, their airspaces could be used by Israel to fight Iranian proxy. So it would indirectly involve Qatar, Bahrain, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and the United Arab Emirates. So the war in Gaza has eventually increased the prospects of war between states and their allies. Last year, Saudi Arabia and Iran restored their diplomatic ties and put aside years of hostility. However, this war can bring them close again on the brink of a horrible crisis. In the context of our discussion, it is clear that an outbreak of a war between Iran and Israel can pose serious threats to peace in the Middle East. Only through a peace deal and a ceasefire, this war can be ended for the prosperity and stability of the whole region. But will this happen in the future? What are your thoughts about it? Do you think this war will change the dynamics of the Middle East? Let us know in the comments section. For more such videos and hot topics, stay tuned to our channel and don't forget to subscribe.